Hello there. Before we really begin, I have to add a slight warning to anyone listening. For some reason, there were recording issues that caused the clicking sound to appear some of the way through this. It's been filtered out as much as possible so that it isn't as obnoxious as it was, but it is still there. Please do try to tune it out and enjoy the scintillating chat that accompanies it. Now that I've got that out of the way, we can really begin.
Kneel Before Blog presents Kneel Before Pod.
Hello listeners, welcome to the first edition of Kneel Before Pod. I'm your host Craig McKenzie. Since we're very close to the release of the next Star Trek film, Star Trek Beyond, I thought I would open this up by discussing what came before, starting with J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, open bracket, 2009, close bracket. Before I bring in my fellow panellists, I will set the podcast to spoiler alert. Now to beam everyone in. Welcome aboard, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Everyone arrive in one piece?
Kinda. I think I've lost one of my arms.
Oh well, we'll persevere.
Oh yeah, very funny, Craig. Can you beam my head on the right way round now? We're not in Spaceballs.
Nah, I'm gonna allow it. The transporter isn't working as well as it should.
No one ever told me my arse is this big.
And okay, so with us today we've got Natalie, who was on the previous podcast that isn't published yet, so that's in the future, but also the past. So, hi Natalie.
Hello.
We have Angus. Hi Angus.
Hello.
And Alexander Richardson, who's not involved with the site, but likes to be on talking about Star Trek.
Hello.
So, hi Sandy, as you like to be called.
Yes, thank you. Hello.
So, we're all here to talk about the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies for our sins. So,
The J.J. Abrams ones, the latest ones.
yes. Yes.
I'm just clarifying that for the people who obviously don't know.
Voice of the
different.
The next generation, shall we
Yep,
say.
here we go. Boom, boom.
I can only imagine you've got hundreds of these lined up.
Oh, yeah. Like you wouldn't believe.
But did you know it's actually got an official name now?
Yeah, the Kelvin verse.
Yes.
Yeah.
What? Oh wait, I read about that. I didn't.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. So we should start as, what is everybody's background with Star Trek? I mean, I could ask for everybody's background with films, but that would take a while. So, just Star Trek.
I watched the newest one, as in the one that was Into Darkness, yesterday for the first time. And then the day before that I watched the new first one, which isn't the one that's out now, but the one that was before the Into Darkness.
Yeah.
Second time. And and I think I've seen some of the old ones, but back when I was like wee.
Right, so
That's
relative newcomer.
Mm.
Hey, I'm a casual fan. I've watched quite a few of the various TV shows, movies, dipped in and out here and there. Yeah, I know my Ferengis from my phasers, but I'm guessing you guys have got the superior knowledge when it comes to all things Trek.
Oh yes. Yeah, I make you two look like amateurs on that scale. No offense intended.
I think I make myself look like an amateur, so you're alright.
I've been watching Star Trek since I was about 10, and I'm horrified to be able to say that was 27 years ago now. 26 years. Crikey. Made myself even look older. I've watched all the films, watched the new ones. I've got costumes. I go costuming, and basically, I've even got some Star Trek graphics on my screen just now because that's what I do in my spare time to earn a little bit of coin.
Cool. And my background with Star Trek is, well, I don't have a memory of not knowing about Star Trek, so I've seen everything. Absolutely everything.
Have you seen
more than once?
Have you seen Captain Kirk is Climbing the Mountain song?
I have. Yes. I've also seen the Picard song and signed a petition to get it to Christmas #1.
It's a good song. I actually enjoyed it.
Unfortunately, it didn't make it.
No.
There's also the Captain Picard Frozen parody that's quite good.
I have not heard that.
I'll put it in the show notes now that I've discussed it. So
that will horrify and amaze in equal measure, I imagine.
Oh yeah, the look on my friend's face when I played him the Captain Picard song the first time, it was like someone had just told him someone had run over his cat, then tried to reinflate it and sell it on.
Wow, that's extreme.
Yeah, honestly, it was he did not like it.
How can you not like it? It's great.
I think it's quite funny. There was a lot of work and love went into that. Finding all the episodes where all the sound bites came from, and then making it work with I think it's autotune he uses.
Yeah. I'm just glad that there's people on the internet with more free time than I've got to do things like this. Because, it entertains me. So, with the new Star Trek films, the J.J. Abrams ones, Star Trek, open bracket, 2009, close bracket, and Into Darkness, it's fair to say that they're designed for people that aren't so familiar with Star Trek. So
I don't know if that's true.
Well, the first one certainly is.
Yeah, the first one definitely.
That's what we're here to talk about just now. So I guess we'll just start where it all began. So you've got the opening scene where the Kelvin gets attacked by Nero's giant big black death ship called the Narada.
Oh, yeah.
And it's our first entry into this new universe. So, open to the floor with initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts on what? The opening scene?
Yep.
It's in deep space?
Well,
Number 9?
I thought it was quite good. I enjoyed it. I liked the approach of the camera zipping past the Kelvin, and you seeing very brief moments of the interior from outside, and then you see this ship, and it looks quite good, and then you see this big, massive one, and then you're like, that's huge. They're not going to come out of this very well. I just thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was nice, spectacular.
Yeah, it was definitely. I mean, Star Trek's always well known for being pretty low budget, made with airfix kits and cardboard sets and stuff. So to see this kind of top drawer CGI, well rendered ship in the first few seconds, it kind of said that they were taking the concept seriously, trying to modernize it and make it a little bit different and look a bit stylish. I mean, the lens flares I can do without.
Yeah.
And they come pretty early on as well. But, yeah, the Kelvin looks great, and I like the effect of the whistling bridge playing over the intro as well.
What did you guys think of the look of Nero's ship in terms of how that, Star Trek canon?
I can't tell where anything is supposed to be on it, so...
Yeah.
That's
I first, until I read up on it, obviously, much later, I didn't realise it was supposed to actually be a Romulan mining ship, and it looks nothing like a Romulan ship at all. Okay, I got that the people on board were Romulan, but I thought he'd somehow nicked it because he's some sort of bad person who's really good at nicking stuff. I don't know what. But I looked at it, I'm like, what is that?
It looked organic or kind of biomechanical or something, a bit like a Reaper from Mass Effect, I think.
Yeah. Nero does say later on it was a simple mining vessel, but there's nothing simple about it.
No. I read somewhere, I can't remember where, that apparently he'd used some sort of Borg technology which would make it biomechanical.
It was the tie-in prequel comic that you need to read apparently to understand the villain's motivation.
All right.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah. Before you watch this film, read this comic because we can't be bothered telling you in a film.
Fair enough. I mean, they did have some sort of story in the film as well, but they cut it out for length reasons or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is why his you'll find we'll just probably discuss this later. Which is why it's his right ear, I think it is. The top of the ear just disappears between when you last see him and when you see him next.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole cut sequence involving the Klingons and stuff that you just don't see. So it just looks like he's sitting on his hands for 25 years later on.
That's right.
Who's Spock?
Nero.
Oh, Nero.
Nero.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, if you pay attention later, what is it? Halfway through the film, at least past halfway, Nero is sporting a gammy right ear, and some scars on the right side of his temple. Apparently, that was in some sort of a fight with a Klingon in a prison.
But nothing's ever made of it.
Well,
it's not in the film, so you know.
You have to explain everything. It sort of shows us that there's been some sort of drama. We're not privy to it, but you know we don't need to be. We can just know that that's happened.
The film works without it. It just would have been nice to have it in there as well to explain why half of the ears are gone. Yeah,
because this film is about the Enterprise crew getting together, which makes the villain almost secondary. You know, because if you look at a lot of these films, action films, they tend to be about the villain. So having it about your main characters is a better choice, I think.
I don't think it's necessary to know what he's been up to. Like, I don't think it's necessary. I think leaving a little to a viewer's imagination is good.
Fair enough.
That's a good point. Good point, yeah.
Yeah. So, after we see the ship, we're introduced to the first captain we ever see in these films, Captain Robau, played by Farhan Tahir, I believe his name is. And, in Star Trek, whenever you see other captains or admirals, they're usually useless because it makes Kirk or Picard or whoever look a lot better. But this guy seems to know what he's doing. He wanders on the bridge, he barks orders, and takes charge.
Yeah, I actually liked Captain Robau. I liked how he was very decisive. He didn't hum and ha about it all. He saw his ship was in jeopardy. He was massively outclassed. We see people getting sucked out into space and everything. That was cool. Not for them, obviously. He's obviously he's given a lifeline and he takes it without flinching. No conferring, no nothing. So like, right, I'm going over there, and if I can delay him battering the heck out of my ship, I will. That's what I'm supposed to do.
I watched this 2 days ago, and I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, you need to. In a lot of Star Trek episodes, and films, the captain is faced with some sort of quandary, some sort of decision, and he hums and haws about it a little. Even Kirk and Picard, they weigh their options.
Are we talking about Kirk's dad? No. Who are you talking
about? Not quite yet. He'll be here soon.
The bit before that.
The guy who gets killed by Nero. Spoilers. He goes over on that shuttle and he gets questioned by Nero, and he says, "Do you know who this guy is?" And he doesn't know who he is, and he tells him what year it is, and then Nero kills him in rage. That's Captain Robau.
All right. Oh well, obviously he didn't leave a lasting impression on me. So.
Although before the film came out, he became a Chuck Norris style internet meme.
Yeah. Which
was weird. There was things going around like shields aren't to keep the enemy out, it's to keep Robau in, and things like that.
Was this based entirely on the trailer?
I don't think he was even in the trailer. I think it was just based on the fact that they kept saying there'd be another competent starship captain in the film. Yeah, so he became a Chuck Norris style meme, and he has about 4 or 5 minutes of screen time before he's decisively murdered.
When he went over to Nero, they were monitoring his vital signs, and when it flashed up on the screen that he'd been killed, it came up terminated.
Yeah, pretty harsh on Starfleet's part.
That is even an option in their computer that when they're monitoring their crew, terminated as a possibility.
It's a rather cold description, I suppose. I think basically that was obviously shorthand for life signs terminated.
Right.
But yeah, it did strike me as a little cold. But then deceased would have, I don't know, it would have seemed in that situation probably would have seemed just a little bit too soft. I don't know.
Yeah, and
maybe I'm rambling.
You can tell Robau's a badass. He has Thor as his first officer.
Yeah.
Long before Thor was Thor.
Maybe that's why you started paying attention at that point, Natalie.
Yeah.
So like, I know that guy.
He's a bit smaller than he is as Thor.
Honestly, I did think it was like his brother or something.
Which Hemsworth is it?
He does have an actor brother, yes.
He has two.
Is he? Oh.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Liam and Luke.
Oh, I'm learning.
Luke's a bit older.
Yeah, but nobody cares about Luke, so...
I'm learning
No.
things.
Burn.
But yeah, it's funny to look back and think that, that was probably his first big role. Or first big film. I mean, it's not a big role, it's quite a small role.
Mm. It's also quite a small role, but...
A small role.
What was that?
Captain of the Enterprise, how's that a small role?
Well, he's captain of the Kelvin for 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Oops, sorry, wrong ship.
It's same... actually, I was about to be... I'll be controversial and say same universe. I don't know if that's controversial or not.
Well... yeah, but... I mean, Thor acquits himself quite well. He takes charge and knows what he's doing and makes sure his wife and newly born child make it off safely.
Yeah.
I mean, I really liked him. I actually really like that whole sequence because it keeps the focus, even though the action's happening, but you've got the silence of the birth happening while all this carnage is going on around it.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes the it grounds the action because you know that there's more personal stakes involved.
I liked how they also stayed true to his character as well, because Kirk later in the original series at some point he says that he looked up to his father because his father was a great commander and made him proud, and George was very is it George Kirk?
George.
Yes, he did his duty, and they didn't change that part of his character at all, because obviously that's before things change and go all awry in the universe. So I liked how they kept George Kirk as he is supposed to be.
Yeah, I've kind of felt I wanted to see a bit more of him, but I suppose that means they did their job.
Maybe they'll do a prequel.
Maybe. No more prequels.
Yeah, it works out quite well, the two kind of divergent storylines to give Kirk the younger his motivation to be like his father, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it informs him, his character later, the whole self-sacrifice thing and having something to live up to as well.
Yeah.
Having something absent to live up to as opposed to something that's there.
Yeah, one thing I hear a lot of people that don't like about the new films is the way that Kirk is just basically a bit of a dick at first. Basically, that's because
just at first.
Well, mostly throughout the actual film, actually. But I say that's because he hasn't had his father to look toward, to go, I want to be like him. He's got now. Apparently, this is explained off screen.
Wait. Let me stop you. So, are you saying that people who don't have father figures
no.
For women, or considering, I'm just saying because there's that scene where he's got glasses in the bed, and so he can't make decisions because he's not had a father in his life.
No. His mother went with someone else who didn't like him. Apparently, this is explained somewhere else. I can't remember where, but I remember reading it. That remember how you see the small young Kirk in that car, and he takes a phone call. Yeah,
the buck-toothed brat Kirk. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
The person shouting down the phone line after him is the abusive or semi-abusive partner of his mother, who doesn't like Kirk. Apparently, it's explained in a scene just before that, which was cut.
Yeah, I mean, do we really believe that the partner of somebody who was a captain for Star Trek people is going to go with a guy?
I don't know.
I don't really believe that. How can you go from somebody so obviously noble as the self-sacrificing captain who goes down with the ship?
It's traumatic.
To like this other person.
That's a good argument.
Don't really get that.
That is a good point.
I also don't get that you're saying that without a father figure that he would grow up to be a bit of a dick. When do you not think that if you had a dick of a role model in that guy, that you'd try and be anything but him?
I would definitely try to be, but some people let that consume them. Some people they show rebellion because they don't like this person who's they don't like the person who's being authoritative over them and not giving them any leeway and not giving them any praise or anything like that. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's psychobabble. It's not because he didn't have a father figure, because he did eventually with his mother's partner, but it wasn't the same guy as George Kirk was. So it didn't inspire him the same way. That's what I was trying to say.
I guess the idea is that George would have raised him where this guy tolerated him, maybe?
I think that's basically where they were going.
Yeah.
Which is why this Kirk is a different Kirk to what we know from the original series, noble and thoughtful and apparently very good in the academy, joined the academy early and such like, and was one of the youngest captains in Starfleet and all this and all that. This Kirk that we see in the new films is a different Kirk at the end of the day, and I think they explained it because of his father dying. He didn't have that. He had a different role model this time. He didn't have that one particular role model that he really looked up to.
Yeah.
That's still relatively in having, imagine, a role model, but let's move on to something else.
Yeah. Well,
it is part of his Kirk's history that his dad was a role model. Without that father figure, that role model as we know him to have been, the character just went awry.
Yeah. He does things like drive cars off cliffs for no reason.
Steals the car in the first place.
Yeah, but you can't hold him accountable for something that he's done as the young Kirk, who must have been, 8 or 9, whatever years old. You can't then use that as, the main thing for, the rest of the movie, or his character. There's years before you then...
Oh, yeah.
...the academy and stuff.
Absolutely.
I don't know, I would hold him driving a car off a cliff knowingly to be against him. I think that's pretty...
And he goes into that bar...
Some pretty stupid behaviour.
He goes into that bar and willingly starts a fight. So he's a bit of a loner, I think, at that point.
Yeah, why-do. He's a total why-do.
Well, it informs us some aspect of reckless nature, maybe, that's exhibited later on, maybe.
Mm.
Yeah.
Maybe he's always had that, but his original father in the original timeline tempered that and molded him into a proper Starfleet cadet. He hasn't had that in this one, which is why he goes off the rails until someone basically dares him to do better.
Yeah. Although with the car scene, I mean, I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I do like that all 20th century music isn't actually destroyed, as seems to be implied in later versions of Star Trek.
Just really into classical music.
Yeah, everyone is. No one listens to anything later than the 1800s or something.
I think they were trying to, in the original series and everything, they're all trying to say that people were cerebral and whatnot.
Or it was public record and they didn't have to pay for it. I mean, there was that.
Not that I like the Beastie Boys, so.
Oh, I think they're all right. And you do get some Roy Orbison in the Star Trek First Contact. Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank.
It's when the Phoenix launches, I think.
I thought that was
It's either that or Steppenwolf.
That's Steppenwolf, the Magic Carpet Ride. That's it.
Yeah, but there is some Roy Orbison in there as well. I think it might be on Cochrane's jukebox or something.
It's possible. Maybe that's who's singing Ooby Dooby.
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, it's good to hear some music that isn't, Vivaldi or someone else.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit more something that you can draw a link to.
Well, I think that was the point.
Did Data ever listen to pop music?
Also, Shatner struggles to say the word sabotage, and that's the song they use. Abrams claimed it wasn't intentional, but I'm pretty sure it was.
That seems right.
Yeah, just if you can find on YouTube Shatner saying sabotage, it's quite funny.
I will be googling it straight after.
So, after this point, we meet Spock as a child, and he's at school learning things.
Cute.
Yeah, it's almost a higher budget version of the scene from Star Trek 4, where he talks to a little crappy computer. that tests him, whereas here he's in a skate park that has some
do those
holograms on it.
Little ladders to climb out again, because when he pushes the guy in, or when they tumble into it, I don't know how they're supposed to get back out.
Yeah, there's no real dignity in walking out of that, is there?
Apparently in a cutscene you see one of the sides collapses and it's a door.
Oh.
I think I remember seeing something like that. I can't remember if it was a cutscene or if it was concept art or something like that. But I do remember there was a way to get in and out. It's just that.
Also, it's sure, and it's in space, so it doesn't really matter. It could be.
Actually, it was on a planet.
Yeah, they're on Vulcan.
Yeah, in space.
Earth is in space.
I know, and it blows my mind.
Earth is in space, technically. Are you floating around your room?
I'm floating in space, guys. Like, seriously, I had to Google yesterday about, like, what is it? Pre-something period. Like, the origins of, like, everything, and it was mental. Freudian something? What is it?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Craig, you'll know this. What is it?
I don't know.
First period of, like, all existence.
The only thing that comes to mind is pre-Cambrian, but I think that's not.
Pre-Cambrian.
That's not. There is something before then as well. I can't remember though. There's all sorts of names for prehistory.
That's the bit for when the sun started forming or something like that. I don't know.
Science.
That's what I was doing yesterday, looking at that, but.
I love reading about that stuff. It's fascinating.
It's mental.
Also mental. Mentally fascinating.
Yeah, I'm just like, what?
You ponder the mysteries of the universe, and I wonder how Spock gets out of a swimming pool.
I know.
So yeah, it's established that he doesn't fit into Vulcan society because he gets bullied in a very scientific way by his, well, I guess older kids. They seem slightly older than he is.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's just short.
Maybe being half human makes him short.
Yeah. But yeah, the way they bully him, they treat it as if it's an experiment and see how he'll react. It's kind of like they're teasing an animal or something like that.
Yeah, but we need that scene because it informs later ones.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it informs later in that very scene, where it follows him to adulthood and he's not accepted, or he's accepted in spite of his human heritage, and they say despite your disadvantage, and he reacts with a giant middle finger and turns down their offer.
I did like that. I did like that. I'm like, it's the way he says "live long and prosper." It's like it's him saying "up yours." You jumped up, people. I'm gonna go my own way.
And he gives him the Siler look at that point as well. Zachary Quinto played Siler in Heroes back when it was good, and he had a look in his eye that always said he was going to kill someone pretty soon, and he had that look.
I can't look at him the same way after watching American Horror Story.
Oh, he's in that? I didn't know.
Oh my god, you should watch it. Definitely.
Is he a bloodthirsty killer?
You should watch it.
No spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers.
You guys might be able to answer this. The way that the Vulcans treat him, is that in any way indicative of their culture to be condescending to other races?
Yes and no.
I suppose not on the surface. They wouldn't like to admit to it, but that scene is heavily borrowed from an animated series episode where the same thing happens.
Okay.
Almost with the same dialogue, actually.
Racist.
I'm just wondering, because maybe it's only because it's within a Vulcan ceremony that they're willing to sort of behave that way. But I don't know if they're like that outwardly to other species.
Yeah, well, in the original series, Sarek had a bit of a strained relationship with Spock.
Strained, I would say.
Yeah. They didn't talk for years, and they didn't get along.
He didn't like that Spock joined Starfleet, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. Although this Sarek doesn't seem to mind.
he sees it as a logical progression, I suppose. I think this it also borrows a little bit on in Enterprise. We see the Vulcans as being a bit of a jackass race. They're kind of trumped up and arrogant, and they think humans are beneath them quite a lot. So it's kind of using a little bit of that, but slightly less obvious. Well, not really less obvious at all, actually, if you think about it.
I also get the impression that Spock's an overachiever in this scene. You know, he feels like he has to do better than everyone else because he is looked down on in society.
Yeah, that could be actually a reasonable explanation as to why he excels so well.
Yeah,
he tries to show up his aggressors by doing better than them.
Yeah.
Or you don't think that being half human, half Vulcan is actually better?
Mm-hmm. Well, Vulcans are...
I think it's just different, not better, as such.
The Vulcans are historically...
And how come he's the best?
Sorry?
How come he's the best then? I don't see any other Vulcan doing anything.
Well, he was the main character in the original series, and he was the only Vulcan that we really saw of a great deal of. But in script and in dialogue, you hear of an entire ship crewed by Vulcans in the original series.
What I'm saying is, they're not considered the best, though. He is.
Yeah, I suppose they're generally accepted as being intellectual.
They're the what did I hear? What did I read? They're the Federation's brain boxes.
Yeah.
That's what I heard them described as once. They are very, very clever and very logical in their thinking, obviously, which leads them to a clarity of thought, so that they can think better, basically. That's what. But they're them holding to their logic is also a failing as well, because they can't adapt to a situation, whereas that's where the humans are better at.
Do you think that Vulcans are actually like a what's the word? Like a character for, what am I thinking of? Do you know, like when you'd be like is it like a metaphor for autistic people?
Could be. I've never thought of it like that.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, Star Trek species have always kind of amplified traits of. Yeah. Obviously, since it's humans writing it, you know, the Klingons amplify aggression, the Romulans amplify paranoia, and so on. So the Vulcans could be, I guess, somewhat autistic.
They're so OCD. They're CDO.
So yeah, I'd never thought of that before, and I wonder if that'll be a new insight in the Star Trek community.
I don't want it to be taken as like a bad thing, because I know that there's like a broad spectrum of autistic people. But they are very high functioning, that's for sure. High functioning, and that level of removal from emotion, you know, like seems to be a distance there. And you know, watching it, I just thought, whoa, he's a little bit like that guy I read about in a book.
Plus, it's a conscious thing that they're, you know, pushing aside feelings. Mm. It's not just something they can do. It's, you know, they have to practice at it, and the fact that they're driven to do that. Yeah.
It's something they study a long time for. They actually, I can't remember between what age ranges, but at some point the Vulcans, they go off into the wilderness and self-study and become them, you know, be one with themselves, as it were, for a while, and they can only come back when they've attained logic. I think that's what they call it, or something like that. What is it? Kolinar, that's it.
It's mentioned in this film as well. He's thinking about doing it and asks his mum if it's going to be okay with her. Which is, you know, very human.
What does she say?
She says, do what you want, essentially.
Oh, so she doesn't care either.
Well, she says no matter what, you will have a proud mother.
Yeah,
so.
Basically, she does what a mother really should do. She lets him make his decision.
Good old Winona.
Yeah, when she's not shoplifting, she's stealing advice.
I knew someone would bring that up.
Well, someone had to.
Yeah.
No, don't.
Wasn't she didn't have some sort of problems at the time?
I don't know anything about it. I just know she was caught shoplifting.
I mean, she definitely had money in the bank, so it wasn't destitution or anything. I think it was some sort of...
TV. They always depict the people who like to steal are the ones that have money. It's never for not being able to afford things. They're not Aladdin.
Oh, Joe, indeed. I think she had some sort of psychological issues at the time, which made her impulsively do things, and one of them was steal. I think I remember reading something like that.
And in this film, she has a son that's only like 3 years younger than her or something.
Yeah. So Vulcans like to start them young.
Well, I mean, the actors are
separated
by a couple of years, but yeah.
But they age her up.
Yeah, they do, for some reason. This collection of scenes establishes Spock's relationship with his father, with his mother, with his people, and gives us the reason that he decides to bugger off and join Starfleet. Mm-hmm. It's basically as a "I'll show you" sort of gesture, which is again very human.
Definitely, I agree.
So yeah, it's a good introduction to Spock. I think Quinto does a really good job in the role. He looks like Leonard Nimoy. Scarily
so. I was about to say that. You took the words out of my mouth.
So, ideal casting, really.
I think they were very clever with their casting, actually. I think when you look at it as a whole, they've actually got them down to a T. I mean, Carl Urban as McCoy just works.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see him in that shuttle and all he's doing is moaning, that's McCoy.
Yep.
It just is. And I like how they retconned why Kirk calls him Bones.
Yeah, we'll get to that soon, but yeah, I have issues with that one. So next we get to the cantina scene, because J.J. Abrams loves the Star Wars, and if you look at the structure of this film, it's very like A New Hope.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, that's a good spot.
So we get the cantina where Uhura shows up and she orders some drinks, and then Kirk shows up and comes on to her with, I mean, I'm no expert in flirting or anything like that, but it does seem like he's not very good at it.
He's full of himself. He thinks he doesn't need to do much.
Yeah.
He thinks just smiling at her is gonna win her over. I think that's what it is. He's a little bit of bravado, a bit of arrogance in there.
Yeah. Everyone else, does Kirk have game, or doesn't he?
He probably asked his father about that.
I'd say no, as evidenced by how he gets on.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that scene's just about Kirk, though. It's not about whether he's capable of chatting up ladies or blah blah. I think it's showing the woman as being somebody who doesn't have to respond to somebody annoying her in a bar.
Definitely.
No, they definitely. And Uhura's, she answered the phones in the original series, basically. So this establishes her as someone who's
a promotion.
Someone who's strong-willed and knows what she wants and knows what she doesn't want. More importantly.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Definitely a strong character in this one.
Yeah, and Zoe Saldana's really good. She kind of brings a character that didn't have much life in the series to life. Yeah,
the older Uhura, in the original series they were bound by 1960s America, so they could only do so much within good taste without getting completely banned off the air. They were one of the first to have an African American woman as part of the main cast. I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, if not the first.
Not the first, and so that was a pretty major step forwards, but they couldn't really push it too far. I remember one of the reasons why they changed the first officer from Majel Barrett to Leonard Nimoy was because the people didn't like the fact that didn't like a woman being in a top command structure. Top command post at the time.
That's so outrageous. That's so outrageous.
1960s America, 1960s sensibility. You wouldn't think twice about it these days. I mean, we've had Captain Janeway.
Yes.
You know, and that would have been unthought of in the 60s. There would even as Gene Roddenberry was trying to portray a more equal future for everybody, he still was confined to 1960s sensibility, and he was pushing the boat having an African American woman on the bridge.
Yeah, so 35 years later or whatever, you've got this version of Uhura who's...
she's got sass.
Yeah.
I like it.
35.
I think it's a bit more than that.
Like 50.
But yeah. It's 50. It's 50 this year. Not when this film came. So
No.
I don't know, 45.
50 years this year. Absolutely outrageous. That's a long time.
Yeah. So you meet Kirk, or you meet the Kirk that we're going to follow for the film, and you meet Uhura, and he's kind of directionless. He's drunk in a bar. He's hitting on cadets. He doesn't have any other plans, it seems.
He's just out to have as good a time as possible, I suppose, or maybe intentionally out there looking for some sort of ruckus.
Yeah.
It could be played either way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he starts the fight,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. He gets in a fight and loses quite spectacularly.
Yeah, he takes quite a beating.
Yeah, he does.
I do like where he pats the guy on the shoulder and says, "No, so get some more guys, and it'll be a fair fight."
Yeah.
And then they hand his ass to him. It's quite funny.
Of course, the only reason he doesn't win is because he doesn't hold up his two hands and club people with them. That's what he's missing out on.
Well, there's also a bit where he stumbles into Uhura and cops a feel and and kind of gives her a grin. I thought that was quite funny.
I don't think that sexual harassment is funny.
Well, neither did she.
No, neither did she.
Yeah, she sent him back to get his ass kicked.
Yeah.
You can't say that that's a funny part in a movie, because I don't think that we should be thinking of sexual harassment being like some sort of laughing matter. I mean, how often do you go out into a club and you get felt up by a creepy old guy?
All the time.
All the time?
All the time. It's the legs. It's the legs. It's the situation. The look on his face is what makes me laugh, because he kind of goes kind of look, and then gets his ass truly handed to him. So I think it's kind of equaled out by the fact that he's getting 7 shades of doo-doo getting kicked out of him.
Don't think you can say that equals it, but however.
For a situation comedy.
Yeah. But anyway, it's Captain Obi-Wan Pike that breaks up the fight.
Oh yeah.
Kirk's in desperate need of a mentor, and here comes Pike, played by Bruce Greenwood, who's awesome in everything I've seen him in.
Yeah, he's an awesome actor. It doesn't get as much screen time as I wish he would, I think.
No.
It plays
I'd watch a Captain Pike film, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely, without a doubt. He's a very good Captain Pike.
Yeah.
I liked him.
Oh yeah, he died, didn't he? Like, oh yeah, he was alright.
Spoilers for the next film, but yeah.
Yeah, spoilers.
But does he not die in like another universe, in another time, in another place?
In the original series, he gets some sort of dose of radiation or something, and he's confined to a chair. And
he's in a chair that he can only say yes or no.
That's pretty extreme.
For some reason. Yeah.
Yeah. He is a captain of a ship. Something goes a bit wrong, and he ends up in this powered wheelchair with one little light on the front, which goes boop or boop boop.
So yeah. Apparently, they forgot about Stephen Hawking's chair in the 23rd century.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also dies in the next film, but in this film, he's very much alive. And yeah.
Oh yeah, he's very much alive. He's standing and he's whistling loudly.
Yeah, and he gives Kirk a bit of a kick in the arse in this scene. Berates him for wasting all this potential he apparently has.
Yeah, is it intimated that he's been watching Kirk for some time?
Well, he talks about his test scores and stuff. Yeah. But he was obsessed with the Kelvin because he was studying it at the academy. So
yes, and thereby extension, obviously, if you study a certain subject, you then, if it's something like that, you then get to read about the survivors, and obviously he took some sort of interest in Kirk.
Yeah, because after I read about historical disasters, the first thing I do is look up the survivors' children.
So he was an opportunist.
Yeah. But he clearly thought that George Kirk's kid would have some potential. But he clearly skipped his brother, which is weird.
Yeah, that's the guy you see him driving past in the car scene.
Yeah, his older brother.
There's a stepbrother, I think they've made him in this film.
I don't think it's cleared up either way. I think it's just.
Yeah, I think in the deleted scene it's made. It's the reason why that lad is on the road is that he's leaving home because he's fed up of the father. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, and his name's Johnny, which is why he shouts for Johnny, and Johnny looks a bit bewildered because that's
because his name's Sam and he's not sure why.
Yeah, indeed.
Never really addressed, is it? You just have to assume that that's some local kid that he knows somehow.
Yeah. In the film as we know it, it's not addressed. No.
No. His brother does appear as a corpse in the original series, but it's just Shatner wearing a fake mustache, playing the corpse.
I did not spot that.
What?
It's fantastic.
How have I not seen it?
That's funny. That is so cheap, and that is just so typical original series because they had a shoestring budget.
Yeah, we have William Shatner, we have a fake mustache, now lie on the floor.
Yep.
I wonder how many other people wore that mustache as well. It must have
probably got sold for a fortune at auction.
Probably how he got the idea of wearing a toupee.
So yeah, after Kirk's beaten and he gets his dressing down, and as you were saying earlier, he gets dared to enlist in Starfleet, to prove that he's not just a colossal screw-up.
And he does.
He gets on a shuttle with no paperwork.
Yes.
Gives away his bike to some guy.
Yep. Here, there you go.
Yeah. So that's how easy it is to join Starfleet. Just show up and get on a shuttle, and no one will question you whatsoever.
Yeah, I did call BS on that. I'm like, no, there would be some, and especially because it is literally the next morning, so it can't be days later, and they've just skipped the part where he goes and signs on a dotted line. It is the next morning because that's what Pike says. Shuttle leaves at 0800, something like that.
Yeah.
So it is the next morning. So he couldn't have been anywhere. He's come straight from that cantina to there, basically.
Yeah.
People do that quite a lot in these films, though. They just kind of show up and then aren't questioned when they turn up on a ship or a shuttle. And come along for the ride.
What are you doing here? Script says I should be. All right. Okay, fair enough. On you go.
Yeah, we need some plot progression.
Yep, on you go.
But to be fair, the scene of Kirk filling out his application form is not anything I ever want to see.
It's not in the deleted scenes.
If they had showed it as a couple of weeks later, for example, you could then just infer, okay, he's gone through the process.
Or Pike was right there. He could have just been like, let him on.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Pike does eventually turn up. He's on the same shuttle, so it could be inferred that Pike said, "Look, if this kid turns up with a busted nose, let him on."
Yeah.
Maybe it's just another example of his impulsive nature. Some old guy in a bar tells you to do something. You're like, next morning, doing it.
Yeah, but some old guy tells you need to live up or better what your father did. I think old Kirk would have done it probably exactly the same if someone had challenged him the same way. He probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah, he might have filled out his application form.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Yeah, it shows that he's reckless and all that stuff. And, he's really hungover. He's driving while hungover. And
look, he's driving drunk.
And getting on a shuttle. So once he sobers up, he's going to be like, why am I here? What did I do? Yeah. Also in this scene, we see the Enterprise being built on Earth for some reason.
This is a massive point of contention for quite a lot of my friends. And I'm like, yeah, well, it kind of makes sense. Because we have ships we have seen there is precedent of ships being built on planets, or at least components being built and then later sent up into orbit, tractor beams, and obviously the engines of the time are far more powerful than what we know today.
It just seems a bit wasteful to have to drag the tons of Starship out of the atmosphere.
It does. I mean, I have no idea why they decided to do that. Other than
Kirk could look at it.
Other than the visual spectacular and making Kirk go look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, we meet McCoy in this scene. How cool is that?
Very cool. I like him. I know you have problems with the scene, but I kind of find it funny.
No, I don't have a problem with the scene. I just I have problems with the fact that Kirk picks a nickname that reminds him of his clearly traumatic divorce. Yeah.
I think I don't know if it's more traumatic as just annoying him.
Yeah.
But I think it's I don't know. Sometimes I mean, I remember my dad's stories from his time in the army. Nicknames aren't always from something that made everybody laugh or made the person whose nickname it is now is laugh or smile. Sometimes it's just a situational thing. They say something at some point, and that kind of sticks in the mind of whoever they're talking to, and that's basically what happened here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, it was just, he says, all I've got left is my bones, and it's like, I'm just going to call him this.
It might hurt him for the first couple of years, but then once he's used to it, he'll never remember. Yeah. He'll just be like, accepting it.
He's a doctor.
McCoy's never happy anyway.
No, he's a doctor, not a database.
But I do think that DeForest Kelley possesses Carl Urban whenever he's playing McCoy, because it's such an eerie performance.
It is. He's even got the hand raised to the chin thing down. The only thing he's not doing is wearing that pinky ring.
Although a friend of mine suggested that Carl Urban's too good looking to be Dr. McCoy.
How important do you think it is that the actors in the new films impersonate to some extent the older actors?
I think it depends on the character. I mean, it would be a bit boring to watch someone do impressions for 2 hours, but I think there has to be something recognisable in there.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. It was this was a nice way to bridge old Trek with new Trek. So the old audience for the new audience, give the new audience a character, a fresh character to enjoy, but give the old audience something to smile at, going, yeah, that's McCoy, or yeah, that's Spock. Something recognisable.
Yeah, they committed to an alternate reality rather than a straight reboot. So if they'd done a straight reboot, they could have done anything they wanted.
Yeah.
But
they've all been Angus.
Well, it could have been. But so I think there has to be something that makes them those characters, just with things playing out differently for some of them.
And when it works, like with Spock and Bones, it works, I think. But then you end up with Scotty,
which we'll get to when he appears.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after this part, after we've met Bones and him and Kirk make fast friends because they happen to be sitting next to each other, we skip ahead 3 years. And we see Nero with his busted ear waiting for Spock. And that's about it. And yeah, he's sitting on his ship waiting for Spock. Spock turns up. Then we go back to the Academy, where Kirk is doing what he used to do best.
Cheat.
Well, womanizing, I was going to say.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
Skipping a scene or two.
Yeah, I actually don't like that scene. It's got this strange juvenile fantasy thing about it. You know, you've got a couple of women sitting around their dorm room in their underwear, which, you know, I doubt happens in real life.
I don't know. I was kind of uncomfortable with it as well. It's just okay. It makes sense for this Kirk, but actually for the other Kirk, for the original as well. I just don't think it was required.
Yeah. And Natalie, that scene will probably not sit right with you after the earlier comment about Uhura just, you know, not having to put up with loudmouths and bars.
Which part?
Oh, just his appetite for the ladies.
Did I ask you it was one of those things that they didn't shake off from the 60s ones or something?
So Kirk has always had. He always got the girl.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's true, considering he doesn't get Spock's girlfriend.
Oh no, I'm talking about original Kirk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this guy's not so successful.
No.
But yeah, it does have a plot reason as well. Here's Uhura talking about the destruction of Klingon ships and stuff.
Yeah, and I do strain to figure out how they would have written otherwise explain him overhearing that. So in that sense, it does make a bit of sense, but I'm still not comfortable with it.
Yeah, and I didn't like the Kobayashi Maru scene either because I get what they were trying to do. He was trying to make a point about an unwinnable test being pointless. Mm-hmm. So he acts like it's a waste of his time. You know, he sits there and he makes a mockery of it. He just comes across as a jackass.
Yeah. Which one? The one when he's in the simulated attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think he's making a mockery of it. I think he's showing up that it's not unbeatable because he beats it.
Beats it by cheating it, by reprogramming it.
He doesn't. Yeah. How does he reprogram it? He doesn't. He's using the technology that's available to the test and to the ship to produce a win situation, and isn't that the point?
And then in the original timeline, he actually gets a commendation for original thinking for doing that.
Yeah, well, exactly. He's thinking outside of the box, so it's not something that you would think that he should get criticised for.
Indeed, but this.
Well, and then
I thought that whole bit was really weird. I was like, that seems really close-minded for having been in the future. Space stuff.
There's an interesting short story about how he passes the Kobayashi Maru that was written in. It's not canon or anything, but I wish it was. Basically, what happens is he reprograms it so that the Klingons respect him when he hails them. You know, and when he's asked about it, he replies with, "Well, I will have that reputation one day."
Nice.
and he will, you know. So.
The old fable saying that the Klingons didn't have a word for. Was it sorry or surrender until they met Kirk?
Yeah. But, I mean, I thought the whole test thing, because it doesn't really pay off in any way, you know, he's not faced with a no-win situation late until, towards the end of the second film, really. So, you know, as a scene, it doesn't feel like it's necessary.
Did they let him in there with that apple? Or was it already in there?
Yeah. And if so, why?
That would have made me go, what's the cadet doing with an apple? and then the way the simulator just kind of semi-shuts down then comes back to life, that would have instantly made me go, right, hold the test, stop.
Yeah.
Because in this day and age, if something that obvious goes wrong with the equipment, you stop. But they just let him continue without, and then they go, how did he beat your test? Well, the clue was in the fact that all the lights switched on and off and everything made funny noises and came back.
Yeah, but it does let you meet. It does let him meet Spock when he's getting his dressing down and he's trying to defend himself, and Spock doesn't understand that you need to cheat sometimes to win, and they don't get along at first, which I quite like.
I do like that. There Did we ever see anything like that in the original series or anything like that? Any kind of... No, they were mutual respect, really, all the way through, wasn't it?
They were always just... Initially, they were just kind of colleagues and didn't become friends until much later. Yeah. Or until a little bit later.
I mean, I know in Undiscovered Country, there's a little bit of a strained relationship between them because Spock volunteers Kirk and Co. for a mission, which they didn't really want to go on. But I think that's the only time that there's a little bit of animosity between the two. Yeah,
but it's good because it shows that there's tension between them, and it's resolved largely eventually.
Mostly, actually, well, yeah. At the end of the film, he's volunteering himself for XO duties, so he's obviously gotten over it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we've beaten the Kobayashi Maru to death. I think they could have cut this largely. You've also got Tyler Perry weirdly playing an admiral.
I don't think they could have cut it because they wouldn't have been able to satisfactorily explain why he gets suspended and why he has that dressing down. I think they needed that for the dressing down scene. They couldn't have just skipped to the dressing down scene and have had the Kobayashi Maru off screen. I think that would maybe have cheated the audience a little.
Yeah.
But then again, they didn't have to suspend him in the first place because he eventually turns up on the ship anyway. It's a little bit like Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, if he did nothing, then it would have been all fine.
Exactly.
Vulcan is attacked after this point, and everyone has to mobilise because there's only cadets that are around and can help out. For some reason.
A little bit of the extension of the Enterprise is almost always the only ship in the sector.
Yeah.
Is there any reason given for why it's cadets only?
They say the primary fleet is engaged somewhere else.
Laurentian sector, something like that?
Something like that. But yeah, but that's the only explanation. Apparently every other ship is off doing something else.
And is it alluded to that Nero arranged that as well?
I don't know if it's actually alluded to. I mean, he's only got one ship, so...
So he's just taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah, he's just attacking Vulcan, doesn't seem to care.
I don't think he cares. He knows his technology is light years ahead of Starfleet, so in the scene before with where Kirk overhears Uhura, Nero has gone and destroyed an entire fleet of Klingon vessels, which are, those things are built for battle. So if you can beat them and shrug them off without any visible damage to a ship, then Starfleet ships aren't going to pose much of a problem. So he's got a grudge against Spock, and he's going to get his way no matter what. So even if the entire Starfleet was in an orbit of Vulcan, he probably still would have went in.
Yeah, but he still needs Starfleet security codes for later on for some reason.
Yeah, I think it's to get closer to Earth or something like that without having too much of a problem.
Well, it doesn't seem like he has too much of a problem already.
No, that doesn't quite track. Don't understand why.
Yeah, but this seems really cool. It's the kind of first time that I can think of in Star Trek that you see kind of people going about a pretty busy situation, just trying to get things ready. You see forklift trucks and people running around and all this stuff.
I do like the aesthetic of the new film where all the shuttles are a little beaten up. Yeah. They've all got paint scratches and scuffs, and they're dirty. And on that floor, you see people running around between forklifts, and like you say, just a very busy atmosphere. Lots of things happening. Obviously, people are in a rush. Beforehand, we've always been, we've been treated to maybe 3 or 4 extra people in the background than normal to say, something's happening. It was good to see quite a lot of people shuffling about on screen.
Is that JJ kind of showing his Star Wars fanboy side with this scrambling to action?
Yeah.
It is in a way, because in most of the films, Star Wars films, you do actually see at some point everybody going to their ships. Mm-hmm. So and a bit of a busy hangar deck scene. So yeah, actually that's quite true. This is the bit from the original, from A New Hope, where they're on Yavin and they're all going to the X-Wings and Y-Wings.
Mm-hmm. And then Uhura talks her way onto the Enterprise because she wants to be on the Enterprise.
Because of reasons. Yeah, I have a big problem with that one.
Yeah. I'm on the Farragut. Yes, that's where you are. No.
No.
Okay. That's the exchange.
Henpecked much?
Although she does remind him of her exceptional oral sensitivity, which is...
What does that mean?
Just a bit dodgy.
I think the script writers were just struggling for something to say there.
And Kirk gets on because...
Reasons, again.
McCoy makes him ill for a few minutes so that we can have some laughs when they get aboard.
Nantang.
Yeah.
It is a bit of funny. That is a bit of a funny one, but it's. I'm not quite happy with it.
I know. I was entertained, even though it's stupid.
It's stupid. Yeah. It's entertaining. It's funny the way he keeps on pumping him stuff with more and more stuff and more and more side effects. It's really, really funny. But in reality, that wouldn't wash.
You've also got the whole thing where whenever Kirk first sees the Enterprise in space, he has lost vision in his left eye.
Yeah. Oh yeah, forgot that.
Yeah, you need to look at this. It's like, I can't. You made me blind.
Yeah. As long as it's on my right side, I'm good.
So yeah, when we see the Enterprise for the first time, I'm less than impressed. I don't like that design.
No, that's one thing. I mean, I can accept Kelvin verse. As an offshoot of the original timeline. Not got a problem with that at all. I just don't like the aesthetics, and I really, really do not like the scaling issues. They're trying to say this thing's about the size of a Star Destroyer, which would make each of those windows that we see something like 4 or 5 stories high. Because it's got the roughly same kind of. If you look at it, it's got roughly the same kind of window layout as the original Enterprise from the original series, give or take. It's not like the Enterprise D where there's windows all over the thing. So there's a smattering of windows about, and you can see that they've used the same design aesthetic for the window placement as the original series or the original movies. But now they're trying to tell us that, yeah, there's only 5 windows on that side of the saucer, but yeah, that saucer's about 4 or 5 decks high, 6, 7 decks high. I'm like, yeah, pull the other one.
Yeah.
Just don't like.
What does everybody else think of the Enterprise when you first see it?
I just don't think it looks as good as previous versions have. I feel the same way about the Batmobile in the Dark Knight and things. It's not as iconic, and it just doesn't make you think the same things as the older ones did.
Yeah, and the Apple Store bridge is a bit.
The iBridge, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like Apple products in the least. So seeing that bridge and it screaming, "This is an Apple shop."
Yeah. Although, I mean, I will say it does look like a modernisation of the original series in the sense that it's kind of an extrapolation of what it might look like in 300 years or 200 years.
Are the see-through iPads based on anything from previous iterations?
Science fiction at the moment seems to like transparent screens, even though they wouldn't ever work.
Yeah, transparent screens would only work if you had something dark behind them. The second you introduce some sort of light or anything like that, you're struggling to see. I mean, it's okay for like a speedometer, where you only need to see a couple of numbers. But when you need to see complex information, like what these guys would be presented with, it would ruin their eyesight. Because they're constantly squinting to figure it out. And what's with the barcode scanners? do they have to scan lots of barcodes on the bridge?
But yeah, they've got the transparent tablets and all that. It's common even in the Marvel movies. Tony Stark has everything he has is see-through.
But so that's just more a kind of symptom of modern sci-fi than being sort of a modernization of anything from older versions of Star Trek, is that?
I think so.
I think it's when in modern sci-fi you've got so many people that are holding up portable devices, so they need to be see-through so you can see the actor's face. I think it's as simple as that.
It's shorthand for this is advanced.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So
I do. The one thing I do like about the bridge is that it's got a big, massive window up front.
The original Enterprise originally had that in the first pilot, and the second pilot actually.
Yeah, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, it's got a window at the front that I guess doubles as a view screen.
Because I thought that was quite a nice touch. It makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah, it does and it doesn't. I mean, again, if you're trying to display information on it, then
it doesn't make so much sense. But then in this day and age, we have glass that can, by a flick of a switch, can go opaque. But you can still display information on it because the information layer is in front of the opaque layer.
No.
So that's possible. You know, flick of a switch and you can see, and you can screen goes black.
With the Enterprise launching, I quite like that they only survive because Sulu's useless and can't get them to work.
Yeah.
And they're a good minute or two behind, so they miss the attack.
I like that. That's quite funny. And this is, although the technology terminology, there's a tongue twister, is a bit off. Have you disengaged the external dampeners? I'm like, what?
Yeah, well, you could turn it into a game just making up bullshit. Trek.
Yep. Oh, you're gonna have to bleep yourself.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Sulu is incompetent, doesn't know how the ship works. So good pilot apparently.
Oh,
we'll find that out.
To his defence, he'd only just transferred, so he obviously wasn't quite up to spec with the systems.
With the eye bridge, he doesn't know how the eye bridge works.
And besides, with that amount of lens flare in your eyes, you might miss that little blinking light.
Yeah. How does anyone get anything done? Because when I'm at work, I have to close the curtains in the morning, or the blinds in the morning.
Yep. I don't understand how, but obviously, maybe they just don't give a damn. They just fly around. Yeehaw.
Yeah. But this is the first point where the crew is essentially together, apart from Scotty, because Chekhov's there, and poor Anton Yelchin, incidentally.
That was rather tragic.
Yeah.
Such a tragic way to go as well. So unexpected.
Yeah.
Unavoidable.
Yeah.
He had a bright career ahead of him, I think.
Definitely, I think he was onto big things. He was going to be, on the same lines as Chris Hemsworth and stuff like that, and people like that, Patrick Stewart and things. He was going to do bigger and better.
Yeah.
I mean, he had been in a raft of films in between. We've seen him in Star Trek.
Interestingly, going back to Chris Hemsworth, isn't he the person that's the biggest star in this film? He goes on to be the biggest.
Well, I think
of all of them.
Yeah, you're quite thinking.
Yeah.
You're quite right. Yeah.
Because Chris Pine's not really went anywhere. Quinto does weird stuff.
Chris Pine's done a couple of films. I liked him in Unstoppable.
Yeah.
That was great.
Zoe Saldana was going somewhere for a while, but then she
just stopped.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is personal decisions. So I'm not gonna. I ain't going to judge anybody on where their career is going, because sometimes they just decide, no, I don't want to do that right now.
She loves a franchise, though.
Oh, well, there you go.
Marvel, Star Trek, Avatar, which will eventually be a franchise, whether we like it or not.
Oh yeah, they're going to make another one, aren't they?
Another 2.
Oh wow, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
I liked Avatar. I thought that was quite nice. I went to see it in IMAX in 3D, and it was just completely. It just drew me in. It was in IMAX and 3D. It was a spectacular film. Try to watch it at home, and even on a rather nice large format flat screen. didn't quite have the same impact.
It just doesn't translate.
I couldn't watch it all. I mean, I've watched it 1.5 times.
Interestingly, this film was at this sort of at the start of the 3D boom and didn't quite get converted into 3D.
No, but I saw it in the IMAX. It was very good in the IMAX. So
yeah, I saw it at the time. I think I went through to Glasgow to see it.
Same here. I went to the Glasgow IMAX and with a bunch of friends, and we made a day of it. And which is why I liked the new film because of the format I watched it in. It was visually spectacular. I had this massive screen in front of me. It was just all encompassing, and just like Avatar, it just drew me in, and I was just completely absorbed into the film. I just enjoyed it, which is probably why I don't have too much of a problem with Star Trek.
Fair enough. Anyway, so when we're all at warp, Chekhov gets laughed at because he speaks broken Russian while delivering a shipwide broadcast. And Kirk runs around with his giant hands and his messed up vision and all that stuff. And it's all very funny and fast paced and kind of strange.
It feels like doesn't take much, very long at all, from them to go into warp until they arrive at Vulcan. But from what I understand, several hours have passed. Because you see McCoy has changed from his cadet get-up into duty uniform. So obviously some sort of time has passed between going into warp, Chekhov's mission briefing, and then when Kirk starts paying attention to what's being said.
He's just been progressively inflating the whole time.
That for hours, and he's cured within minutes, so that's all right.
Yeah, good old McCoy.
Good old medical technology in the 23rd century.
Yeah.
I like the exchange he has with Spock, where Spock says, "Why are you here? Get away! You're wrong," and then he gets proven right, and Spock says, "Actually, he's right." It kind of shows that the safety of the ship is more important than him being right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do like that. Where at first he's very defensive and very you shouldn't be here, kind of almost like I've got a grudge against you because you screwed with my test kind of thing going on. Yeah. So I have no time for you whatsoever until Kirk manages to say just a few words that makes him listen, and then being the logic of Vulcan, half Vulcan he is, he actually then okay, fair enough, say your piece.
Yeah. And then they appear at Vulcan, Kirk's right, and the fleet has been destroyed, and I mean they can't have been behind by more than a couple of minutes. So that's some quick work.
Oh, it took them a couple of minutes to. Well, actually, the Kelvin shields were down in no time at all, and the ship, and then it took forever to take to batter the ship itself physically.
Yeah.
Which has been called. People have called that as a bit of a. Wait, hang on a second. How can they drop the shields within seconds, but then it takes them forever to actually, not even destroy the ship?
Because plot.
Yeah.
Always plot. The speed of plot.
I saw one guy. He argued that the shields were just a nice to have feature, but the hulls were armoured and were designed to take a bit of a beating before things really got critical, which is why once you're through the shields, it just takes a bit to batter the ships. But then that doesn't track as to only a couple of minutes after the fleet arrived, it's all just debris.
Yeah,
doesn't quite make sense to me at all.
But they're saved because they're the Enterprise, which is good.
Yeah, because of reasons.
Yeah, plot reasons. I don't know.
Also Nero does actually spot the ship's name and then doesn't. He's about to fire, and so that kind of makes sense. It's not. He's looking for the Enterprise because he knows Spock is on it. So that does kind of make sense. I don't think that was someone says that was just a cheap and nasty plot point, just to explain why the Enterprise doesn't get destroyed. And I'm like, no, actually it makes a lot of sense. He's looking for Spock. He wants to exact revenge on Spock. So why destroy his ship?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it makes sense. Perfect sense to me.
Yeah, and it is a cool sequence where you see the Enterprise struggling to maneuver its way through the debris field.
Dodging R2-D2.
Yeah, it loses some paint, loses some roof tiles.
Yeah, I think it actually loses a couple of hull plates, definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, brand new ship, it's a scratch. That's like getting your car, taking it from the forecourt off to the shops, coming back and someone's dinged it.
Yeah, so.
But they have bigger fish to fry, so they care.
Yeah. So it's kind of at this point the film starts to. I feel like it starts to rush to wrap itself up. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but you get this Pike's captured and suddenly they need an action scene, and then they need to get Kirk back on the ship, and they need another action scene, and then the film's over, sort of thing.
Yes and no. It doesn't look too rushed. I mean, it's all got a logical progression. Pike knows what's going to happen when he boards the ship, because obviously he's studied what happened with the Kelvin. So he knows when Nero's inviting him to discuss terms of surrender and such like, he knows he's more or less a dead man. But he uses that situation to get Kirk and co into a position where they can change the way things are going, to their advantage.
Why does everybody think that they're not monitoring Pike's life signs when he's on the on the Narada?
Tension.
It's because they're watching the cooler space jump, I think.
Yeah, it's also they're blinded by all the lens flares, so they can't find the switch.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one, but you've got this. It seems that Nero has a habit of taking prisoners for some reason.
It is a character trait, definitely.
Yeah. I do like the space jump, though. I think it's really well done. I mean, it's filmed on mirrors. They're standing on mirrors to reflect the sky. It's really cool.
I think it's actually very good, yeah. It's the first time we ever see that in Star Trek. I mean, there was meant to be some similar kind of introduction to Generations, with Kirk doing a very low orbit, almost just out of atmosphere jump, and then landing on Earth, and I think it's Chekhov and Scotty that meet him or something like that, but it gets cut. So this is the first time we actually see it on screen. Sort of like a low orbit jump, and I think it's quite cool. And did anybody catch that it's the red shirt that buys it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but why does he wait to pull his chute for so long?
Because
he's a crazy person.
Because he's in
just
red.
like an adrenaline junkie, and he's thinking,
Yeah, he thinks he can. He wants to be first on a platform. So if he releases lower, that would have been that would have worked. But he released a couple of feet too late.
It's quite a good death, as deaths go.
It is that momentary scream is also quite chilling.
Yeah. Although I love the look on Kirk's face when Sulu tells him that his expertise is in fencing. Although from what I can tell, what he does isn't fencing. That's I don't know.
It's different. It's something.
Yeah. I'm sure there's got to be a YouTube mashup of his collapsible sword turning into a lightsaber.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a lightsaber without the light. That's what he's doing. It's a lightsaber fight without the lightsabers. That's what it is.
Yeah. JJ's Star Wars creeping into Star Trek.
Yep.
They for them as well that there's only a couple of guys that come out to fight them.
Well, to be honest,
it's not a big drilling rig.
Yeah, to be honest, it's mostly all emitter, and with it looks like just enough room for a couple of people to be sitting either side of it. What they're doing, no one knows, because obviously the thing's being controlled by the ship.
Yeah.
But
They're down there in case someone decides to jump onto it.
Well, yeah, I can believe that they're not expecting anyone to turn up actually on the platform there. So,
yeah.
You know.
Because they'll know that its energy, what was it? Its energy signature or something was stopping the transporters from working. So
there's so much of this crap in these films.
The
transporters aren't working.
That's Star Trek. That's Star Trek. They've got all this tech, and something always happens to stop it from working.
It's this tiniest little thing. It's like a tree blocking a satellite signal.
Yeah, it's one of these things.
There's a big tree in the way. We can't beam them up.
I didn't call BS on that because I'm just so used to that. There's always something stopping the transporters working, or some reason why they can't use a shuttle, or something.
Although, when they do get the transporters back and they beam them back, the thing that, I mean, it's all pretty cool, it's all pretty tense, but you know, when they get beamed back, they should have just been paced on the transporter pad because they've never stopped the momentum of people travelling.
No, they didn't.
By beaming them up. So yeah, they should have just been.
They were just plucked out of the sky. Well, what was almost the ground, and then they just kind of stop. There's just total inertia as they arrive safely in the transporter room.
Yeah. I mean, their helmets smash and stuff, so you know. Yeah, so it seems like they're invincible and would have been okay if they'd crashed on the ground anyway.
Yeah, they do hit the floor kind of awkwardly.
Yeah. Although you get to see Chekhov being the best at what he does.
Yep, he's obviously using calculations, so he's obviously. I mean, I'm fine with that as well, with the whole lack of being paced, because he's done calculations and he's obviously managed to somehow cancel out the inertia. At the end of the day, if you can quite happily accept that they're beaming someone atom by atom up to a ship, then it's not too much of a stretch of imagination that cancels out any inertia as well. I mean, historically, when you transport, you're standing still anyway, and they can't move until they're fully materialized.
Right, so he's like calculated the amount of reverse thrust he'd have to put on them to have them arrive. Basically, with a soft landing. But I agree with you. If you, as you say, if you're willing to believe that could happen, why not the extra leap?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just nitpicky. Most of my concerns about this film are nitpick.
Yeah.
To be fair, but,
isn't there a point later on, or it might even be in the next film, where they're unable to do the same thing? They're unable to beam people who are falling or are in constant movement. I'm sure there's a
that's
reason.
The second one. Yeah,
right. Sure, there's a reason given for it, but
I think there's a different reason. It's because there's too many bodies or something like that, that you can't distinguish between because they're at the limit of their range or something. I can't remember exactly what. I'll need to have a look at that.
Probably a good Star Trek reason.
Reasons.
Yeah.
Because Trek no babble. There you go.
So, haven't heard from Natalie in a while. What are your thoughts? Is she still in the room?
She is still here. Thoughts? Space jump, massive drills, space fencing, lightsabers that aren't lightsabers.
What space jumping?
Yeah, when the guy is parachuting right into a fiery death.
Oh yeah, like what was that about? No, but seriously, are these guys not supposed to be super trained and he launches himself out there like an asshole? What's he doing?
Pretty much.
Well,
nah, wasn't.
Hang on. Sulu and the Red Shirt are actually commissioned officers. Kirk is the only one that's technically a cadet at that point.
Yeah, but you can believe that he's taken all those advanced classes.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, he likes to jump off things and run around and...
Definitely.
He's established as being the action hero, the best guy on board, so that's fine, I think. Him being able to do that is fine, because he's Kirk, and Kirk can do everything.
There was a scene shortly after they land on that platform thing that I didn't quite like, when he's fighting one of the bad guys that emerges from the floor. Because you see him when he lands onto the platform with his parachute and stuff, and he throws his helmet away, but then, like 20 seconds later, he's bashing this guy over the head with it, and I was like, where did you get that from? That's gay.
Magnetic helmet.
He used the force to retrieve it.
Oh, no. Why not, eh?
Just before Alderaan is destroyed.
That's, yeah. They blow up Vulcan, get it sucked into a black hole, which is, I guess it's the statement that we can do anything in this universe.
Yeah. We'll take one of the main planets from the history of Star Trek, and we're going to destroy it from inside.
Yeah, and I also quite like how they couple it with Spock losing his mother, because, we can't imagine what the destruction of a planet feels like to someone, because, we live on a planet and we've never seen one destroyed, but we can understand what a guy losing his mother will feel like.
Definitely, I can relate to that.
So, the bit where he looks at the empty transporter pad and she's not there, and
that his human side comes through. Definitely, at that point and as Spock Prime later on says, spoilers, he is emotionally compromised.
Yeah. It's not something you see in a lot of blockbusters either, this kind of quiet moment in the middle where they're allowed to let something sink in. Even in the next film, it's kind of just on to the next thing, every time.
That is actually a good point.
There's something about a comment you just made about it lets his human side show the fact that he's considering the loss of his mother. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if you can say that when I don't think it is a human thing to be feeling emotions, because his father says to him, that he married her because he loved her. It's not just a human thing to have emotions. Even as a Vulcan, you have emotions, and it's not like, you totally.
The difference is that Sarek isn't visibly affected by it.
Yeah,
at least not as much as Spock is.
He suppresses the visual side of the emotion.
Yeah,
he can.
So
he
buries it and deals with it.
Some humans do that though, so it's not like a.
Yeah.
No, but it is in universe. It's not something you often see a Vulcan do, and even in the original series, Spock very rarely showed any kind of emotion whatsoever. Only when he was compromised with some sort of plot point.
Yeah, or he would say everything through an eyebrow raise. You'd know how he's feeling when he raises his eyebrow at once.
Mm.
That's how Leonard Nimoy emoted.
But this is the first time we see Spock actually mourning.
They do emote, so it's not like it's just that because they're Vulcan. You can't view it as being any less showing emotion than what humans do, just because they've decided that maybe his eyebrow raises are an indication of an emotion for him. But each species or whatever, each race, whatever, and they'll have a different way of showing emotion. So you can't say that a lack of facial consideration of the fact that his mother's died makes it any less. Do you know what I mean?
I get what you mean.
It's not just human.
Definitely not.
Emotion.
No, definitely not. It's going by the history of Spock. He's always had this conflict because of his half-human nature. It's harder for him to suppress his emotions, which he does successfully throughout his original career. It's just very rare we see Spock actually show emotion, and it was very nice to see that moment where the mourning on his face of that empty transporter pad.
Also, in the context of this film, I think all the humans are established to be very hyper-emotional. So, everyone is, I guess, showing a lot more. Everybody, there's nobody who's repressed in any way. Everyone just kind of wears their heart on their sleeve, so to speak. So it makes it a bigger contrast when Spock doesn't, and then a bigger contrast when he does.
Yeah, maybe it's because I didn't see a lot of the original things and stuff, but I found it really weird that everyone kept telling Spock that he wasn't showing emotion when I thought that he actually was.
That might just be a symptom of the fact that it's kind of being introduced to a new generation of potential fans, and they have to feel that they have to explain a lot of the characteristics to people.
Yeah, but I felt like if you're going to try and explain them, then you should have it where he doesn't actually show any emotion. But I thought that he did. I thought that he did a lot.
He kind of does throughout, but he's a lot more restrained, I would say.
Was he restrained when he's like pummeling Kirk's face?
Well, that's later.
That's later when Kirk pushes him over the edge.
Yeah.
But
still,
Kirk
I think
goes
that
out.
this movie shows him as having like no emotion or blah blah. I think everyone kept telling him that he didn't show emotion, but I think that he was pretty emotional. I think that he showed that quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see his stoic Vulcan side that much.
No.
But, that moment is definitely, regardless of how much emotion he showed before that point or not, it's definitely a powerful scene. And I do like that a blockbuster film in 2009 is able to just take a minute to, take stock of itself and let the planet destroying sink in. Because I don't think that even happens in The Force Awakens, where they blow up 6 planets or whatever it is.
No, definitely.
And then everybody just gets on with it a scene later,
Yeah, they're just straight on to the next thing.
Yeah. So, props to Abrams and the writers for actually taking a couple of minutes out of a 2-hour runtime to just let that happen.
Let it sink in.
Yeah. And then after this point, you get the alternate reality established in dialogue, where they say that this is all different. It's not going to go the same way. It's kind of on the nose, but and Kirk gets kicked off the ship at that point because he disagrees with Spock.
Definitely, yep. That's something that a lot of people think is a bit reckless. Kicking someone off the ship onto an ice planet of all places.
Yeah, onto an ice planet that apparently is next door to Vulcan for some reason.
Yeah, indeed.
So next door that you can see it in the sky.
Yeah.
On a snowy day.
Yeah, that's BS.
Although, and it has the Cloverfield monster on it.
So it does.
A small red version of the Cloverfield monster.
Very, very red for a sort of Arctic environment.
Yeah,
it's come out of the ground.
It has no fur or anything like that, so it doesn't seem to have any way to keep its body heat. So it doesn't look like something that would survive long.
Yeah,
it does.
And maybe it got kicked off a ship as well.
Possibly.
For disagreeing with the captain.
Of injecting alternative logic into a situation.
Yeah. But what are the chances of finding that one cave that Spock happened to be in? I mean, that's luck.
That's 1 in a billion, that is. But plot, so it says it has to happen in the script, so it happens.
Yeah, and as good as it is to see Leonard Nimoy,
Spock's able to come to his aid very quickly and just at the right moment.
Yeah. And as good as it is to see Nimoy, the mind meld is kind of an exposition dump.
It is. But we've seen similar in many, many, many films. Someone gets introduced in the nick of time, just out of nowhere. So, in that kind of way, I don't have too much of a problem with that. And the mind meld made a lot of sense for Spock to quickly convey exactly what went on.
Yeah.
Time's of the essence, and you can, with a mind meld, you can transfer information much quicker.
Yeah, and part of me felt like Leonard Nimoy was kind of a Spock string puppet in this film. They trot out as many of his catchphrases as they can in a short space of time.
I don't know. I don't think there was any need for his catchphrases.
No. Well, the second thing he says is, "I have been and always shall be your friend." And Kirk's just like, "What? Who is this crazy old Vulcan?"
Yeah, that seems.
He lives in a cave and he thinks he knows me.
That does seem a bit forced.
Should he be turning to the camera every time and just winking like, "That one's for you, Trekkers"?
Yeah. I mean, as good as it is to have him play Spock again, you know, his presence in this film isn't entirely necessary.
No. But it's nice.
Because the plot was moving by this point, you know.
Definitely. But they needed a way to get Kirk back onto the ship.
Yeah.
And Prime Spock knew of a way, and that's how he became useful.
Yeah. Yeah, so we meet Scotty at this point, and the first thing he talks about is food, which is a strange reference to the fact that James Doohan was a little bit overweight in his advanced years.
Do you think that's what it was?
Well, I hope not.
I don't know. I think it was him just being a moany bugger. Because he's been on this planet. He's obviously been on that ice planet for quite some time, where there's naught but nasty animals that want to eat you for company, and a funny thing with stalks for eyes. So he's obviously on rations and stuff like that. So of course, if you get two people that can actually talk to you and not just shrug, then of course you're going to start complaining about it.
But yeah, it just, you know, when you have that, I guess that connection was made in my head, and it was made in at least a few other people's, I think.
Fair enough.
It was thinking towards his rotund future.
Yeah, that's it. It's foreshadowing. One day this guy will be fat.
I'd never thought that at all. That's a new one to me. But I could see how you might consider that to be a little, you know, jab in the side.
Yeah. What does everybody think of Simon Pegg in this role?
I was about to ask that question.
Do not like.
No.
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 Why?
I don't know. I don't know if it's something to do with finding the accent incredibly annoying, or just how he chooses to play it. I just find the character to be, too moany, a bit too annoying.
I do kind of agree. They turned him into the comic relief, and Scotty was always funny, but he was also a genius.
Yeah.
You know, he's an eccentric genius. That's what he's supposed to be. He's not supposed to be this kooky guy that, you know, rushes around and you wonder why he's there.
Yeah.
I guess they do stress the genius side of him, but he doesn't come across as all that competent, I suppose.
No,
that's a good point. Yeah, he
makes fun of Sulu later as well. You know, surprisingly, the ship is in position, or something like that.
I actually like his accent. It's a lot better than Doohan's accent was. And a lot better than some actors doing accents. Pretty far. And the fact that he's got a Glaswegian wife does help a lot. He's channeling his wife when he's talking in that accent.
Yeah, it's a consistent accent, I'll give him that, but I don't think they ever decided for this version of Scotty where he was from and what accent he was supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. So he ends up trotting out sort of colloquialisms from different places in Scotland that I've come across, you know.
But I don't know if that's his fault or if it's the writer's.
No, it'll be that's the writer's fault.
That's the writer's fault.
But it also... we borrow colloquialisms from all over Scotland, so I do it myself. I'm not going to judge someone that we've seen on screen doing it, because it's not what we think area-specific.
I was about to say that as well. In the future, Scotland, presumably people travel more. People talk to other people from other parts of Scotland more. So you will pick up colloquialisms. I mean, when I'm in Glasgow, I start picking that up more when I'm talking to my friends, and I respond in kind.
It sounds like a wee when we're in Glasgow.
And then when I come back home to Fife, then I pick up the Fife accent again.
I think
colloquialisms.
I think in general, and for probably the vast majority of the audience, the accent probably isn't that much of a problem because they don't have any familiarity.
It's definitely Scottish. It can be said it's Scottish. It's not Glaswegian. It's not Dundonian. It's just generic Scottish. And for that matter, it does its job.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell he's supposed to be Scottish, and you know they do have the genius thing, but he sits around waiting for Spock to tell him about this thing that he'll discover one day. Which ultimately ruins the next film in a lot of ways.
He does make it. He does show that he was obviously developing that. Trying to make that work, because he does say a line saying he never thought of thinking space as the thing that was moving, or something like that. I can't remember the exact lines.
That's the line. Yeah.
So he was obviously working on something like that anyway. So that does kind of show his genius side, that he understood what he's seeing in front of him instead of going, "What on earth is that? That's gobbledygook. I don't understand that."
Yeah, I agree. I think that at no point is it shown as if he's sort of been endowed with this knowledge beyond him or anything like that. So it does. I agree that he's presented as being sort of capable from that side of things. I just think that there's other sort of incompetent aspects of his character.
I also don't think Spock should have shown him the equation, because he didn't need to. All he needed to do was input it so they could beam aboard the Enterprise. He doesn't need to. Scotty doesn't need to see that.
What if he told him space is the thing that's moving, and then Scotty would be like, "Wait, if I just tweak my equation?"
I think that was just basically a method to get things moving along quicker without without telling Spock Scotty what he needs to work on, and then waiting for Scotty to figure it out. He just went, "I'm just going to input this," and because Scotty's there, he obviously he looked. I'm like,
You think Spock would have been a bit more careful about him seeing it?
Yeah.
I feel so for him that he's sort of robbed of his greatest discovery.
He also, Spock purposely chooses not to come along because he wants the crew to get along and become the team that he enjoyed being a part of. So, I think that, this scene didn't need Scotty to see the equation, because, it causes so many other problems later anyway.
It certainly doesn't need to, but it does allow him to have that line, which injects that he's quite a capable person, quite clever, and understands what Spock just did.
Yeah.
So in that respect, it was required, because beforehand he didn't look like he just wasn't up to much, because he's been left on this planet somewhere with a broken shuttle that he can't fix.
Yeah. And then there's then he gets stuck in the Enterprise's lazy river.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, because you've always wondered what would happen if they don't quite calculate the transporter coordinates properly. It's kind of funny in that way. You're like, finally, this is what happens when. This is why you really make sure that you know where you're beaming. It's also shows that they're at the limit of what they can do, but the whole. I don't think he would have been able to hold his breath quite that as long as he does in the film.
Well, he didn't take a deep breath before he beamed out, so
Exactly. So I think it would have been spewed out of that emergency hatch, which was quite conveniently located for all the midnight dips that the crew go for.
It's just before the skull crushing turbine, so that's handy.
Yeah, the chompy blades of horrendous death.
Why is it above the catwalk, but just far enough up that no one could ever reach it, but you could fall from it and and
hurt yourself?
Not badly injured.
because reasons. Well, come on, they're using a brewery as engineering. So
yeah, everyone's drunk. That's what's going on.
Yeah, that's what
it's
it is.
All a bit too with gloop for me, I think.
Yeah.
Augustus Gloop. Yeah. Oh yes, I got that reference.
But I like when they get caught by security and that guy gets to, after 3 years, finally return Kirk's cupcake jab.
That is quite good, actually. I liked that.
He's been sitting on it for 3 years. It's become an obsession. He hates it. He hates that he was called it, and now he gets closure.
He gets called he's the cupcake officer. I think that's his nickname. Cupcake.
All his friends call him Cupcake. It's ruined his life.
It would most likely, to be honest, I would not be surprised if that would actually be the case.
Yeah. after that, we've got the bit that Natalie was talking about where Spock beats Kirk to within an inch of his life, which is one of the strongest scenes in the film, I think.
Did you like it?
Not really.
Seeing Spock go to town on him?
Nope. It's not going to happen.
I liked how it showed Spock had a it showed Spock for being emotionally compromised as he was, and it was not what we would expect of Spock.
Yeah,
it was exactly what I expected of him, because you can totally tell that that's where the story's going. It was a complete.
Especially if you've seen the trailer.
Completely predictable. Like, we know that he becomes Captain Kirk, so we know that, of course, that's going to happen in order for him to become captain. So I think it was completely. Yeah. You can totally see that happening, and I think.
I like the mechanics of the scene though. You know, where you get Kirk right up in his face, you know, trying to get that emotional response.
I think he could have tried harder. I think he says like he doesn't really go into anything. You know, he just kind of says, "Oh, your mother's dead" or something, and you've done
That's all he needed.
Yeah, they could have made it, you know, a little bit harder. Could have gotten a bit more brutal with that, I suppose, but
a little bit more scathing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. It wasn't something, as a Star Trek fan, I didn't expect to see Spock do that in the film. And I remember seeing the trailer at first, I was like, oh man, this is going to suck. You've got Spock beating people up, and this is.
But it works.
You know, in context, it works.
Yeah, it works in context, because I was afraid of that as well when I saw it in the trailer. I'm like, they better come up with a good explanation for that, and they do.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, and Spock stands down on his own, of course.
Indeed.
He doesn't need any cajoling. He's just like, okay, I've gone too far. I'm off.
He recognizes that according to the letter of the law, he needs to stand down. So again, that's his logical side coming back as well.
Yeah. And then Kirk takes command.
Kirk assumes command.
And no one objects.
Exactly.
Well, someone does say who's in command, and he says, well, Pike made him first officer before you left. I'm like, really?
Yeah, so there's there's some poor guy down in engineering or the security room or somewhere who's just like, what, who's this guy?
It was supposed to be me.
Yep, everyone has just been bumped down one.
Yeah. Because Kirk.
It's like the manager's pet, you know, he gets all the perks even though he doesn't necessarily deserve them.
But it's true, if you're someone else who's like very rarely on the bridge, or you're just hearing these orders coming in and you have no idea who this guy is, you're like, what? Who's the captain now? Who? Who's this guy?
Yeah. Apparently, captaincy is decided by general proximity to whoever's captain at the time.
Well, he does make that shipwide announcement.
Yeah.
So people would know.
Well, people would know it's him.
But they wouldn't know.
But no one would know beforehand that it was him.
Yeah, and possibly not everybody would know him by face. So they'd walk into it, and there's this guy that they've never seen before, sitting in the centre seat, and was like, eh?
Yeah, and someone gets corralled into, someone corralled him into the escape pod as well. It's like, hey, isn't that guy that threw off the ship a couple hours ago?
No explanation needed. They're either that loyal or just kind of browbeaten that they sort of, oh well, I accept
it. It's crewed by largely cadets, isn't it? So.
Oh, yeah, so they're like, this must be normal.
Yeah. Oh. Let's rotate. I'll be captain next week.
Everybody gets a shot.
But yeah, it's kind of one of those plot reasons. Everybody's in the position they need to be. You know, everybody's sitting in their right chair and all that stuff. You just need Spock to deal with this conflict slightly and then get on board with the whole plan.
Which he eventually does, yes.
Yeah. Which is and then you get the sort of end set piece, which I think is very messy, actually.
Mm.
For the most part.
If you're talking about him, despite the fact that the Narado's slowly getting sucked into its own, a black hole, they decide to still just fire everything they've got at him.
Yeah, but sort of even before that, the the whole rising out of Titan's atmosphere is pretty cool, but it's just done for a cool shot.
That's just done for visual spectacular, and it's a really nice visual scene. I like it. It almost makes the Enterprise unobjectionable.
Yeah.
With all the lights flashing and stuff like that, and things like that. It's quite cool. It is cool.
Yeah. And when they're sort of running around the Narada, it's kind of... I never felt like they were in any real danger. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
Anybody else thought that.
I thought they were, because beforehand, when we've seen phaser fights, and let's just call them phaser fights, it's always been fairly clinical, and someone takes a shot and they crumple down to the on the ground, and you know that's most likely just a stun, and he'll wake up with a headache later on and he'll be fine. But in the firefight that we see on the Narada, you've got pretty vicious sounding weapons hits all over the place. And when people take that guy who comes up really close to them and they pop him in the chest, you see a wound and everything like that, and you see him actually. It's quite a nasty firefight actually, and I thought this is more dangerous than previous firefights I've seen in Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of. Well, it was modernised in the sense, they're not beam weapons, and they're more like Star Wars blasters again. And,
I mean, and instead of bullet hits, you've got energy hits. But it's the same kind of thing. I thought that was quite impressive, with all the weapons hits going off around them, some of them barely missing them. And I actually thought they generally were in trouble there. There was a danger that one of them could get hit. I mean, obviously they're the main characters, so they might just get a wing. They might just get winged or something like that, but that's about it. But the effects and everything...
They have to traverse quite a lot of gantries without handrails and things as well, so...
Again, that's Star Wars.
There's falling danger.
Yeah, and there's the bit where Kirk is a bit Spider-Man-like, where he's holding onto that slippery platform somehow.
Yeah, and he manages to stall the guy.
Yeah. And it's kind of something that... it's clear that in both these films, Abrams isn't really interested in letting Kirk be a commander who sits in a chair and gives orders. He'd rather have him on the ground or on the ship running around shooting at stuff.
Wants Kirk to be his Han Solo.
Yeah. And I would like to see the commander side instead of, as we get to now, him ordering a ship that's been torn apart by a black hole to be shot at.
Maybe we'll get to see that in the next film. Who knows?
Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe it was just his sort of very young and impulsive side. I mean, he'd only just become captain. So yeah, maybe he'll take a back seat or the commanding seat.
It does sound like it from the trailers anyway.
Although I do quite like, or I was starting to quite like the offer he made to save Nero to show that they were better, and then when Nero's like, "Nah, you're not going to save me," and then Kirk pummels him. Yeah, I think that in order to show that he was still better, he would have tried anyway.
I think the original Kirk would have done that, yes, definitely.
Yeah, and it would have been a better reason for them to be stuck in the black hole as well. Trying to save Nero and his crew, but they couldn't, and now they're stuck and have to throw technobabble at it until they get out.
Yep, that's one thing someone pointed out to me. So they spent all that time shooting at an already doomed ship for no real gain. They didn't gain anything from it. They could have gotten away without ejecting their core and everything like that, because they weren't trapped in the gravity field beforehand. But they spent so long shooting at it for no apparent reason. But because we're badass. They got themselves into that situation.
Just to provide that jeopardy that they had to then get themselves out of.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, everyone's in the place they need to be, and everybody's laughing at their near miss, and they're all excited and they're ready to go on a mission, and then Kirk gets promoted from cadet to captain in the space of a few days, and given a ship even though he's not finished his training. And,
yes.
Yeah, you do get to see Spock passing the torch to his younger self, which is a good scene.
I do like that, and I did like that that line where saying, as my usual salutation would be oddly self-serving.
Yeah.
I actually thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, it's it's good to see them sort of going out and doing their thing, but I think it just happens too quickly. It's just, they needed this origin story to end with Kirk with all his powers, so to speak.
Although he does, as we'll cover later, he does get that stripped off him. Spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah, so Spock delivers the iconic speech, the Enterprise warps off, and, we wait 4 years for a sequel.
Anybody notice that the deflector, little ports open up on the deflector before they go into warp?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't notice that, but the deflector
I was
actually...
one of those people.
A lot of I thought that was quite nice. Again, there's another way of just differentiating between old Trek technology and new Trek technology.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a nice having Spock deliver his speech at the end there. Yeah.
So the film is over at that point, and we finally got through it. So, so final thoughts, everybody. General thoughts on this film.
I quite enjoyed it.
It's good. It's good blockbuster fare, isn't it? It respects enough of Star Trek, and it's fun, and it's well paced, and it puts it in a good place, I think.
Yeah, and it had like a nice re-establishing story, and I think for somebody who's kind of like an outsider too, it felt just quite fun to watch. Don't really have to really much.
It's definitely gained Trek a lot of new fans.
Yes.
Because the amount of people that have come up to me and says, "Do you like Star Trek?" I went, "Yeah, I do. What do you like?" And then I respond, both of them. I get that quite a lot. On its own, the film, actually not even on its own, counting into the fact that it is a completely new timeline, I enjoyed it. I saw it immediately for what it was. It's not a reboot. It's actually it's just a parallel universe where everything's the same, but it's different, but it's the same. And I enjoyed it. I came out of the cinema thinking, yep, that was worth my money. And I bought the DVD as soon as I could, and that's usually a good sign for me. Because if I'm not too sure about the film, I won't buy the DVD basically, because that's the way I show my support, or lack thereof.
Yeah, and Angus, what are your thoughts on as a experience?
Somewhat experienced fan. I think it kind of updates the franchise, if you will, quite well for the 21st century. It kind of puts those kind of action tropes onto it, and I think there's things in there for new fans. It's always going to be difficult to please everyone, but I think it's done well to get a lot of new fans on board. And there's a lot in there for old fans and for hardcore fans to enjoy as well. Obviously, we've talked about some of the sort of niggles and things, but I think for the most part, it is just a bit of nitpicking here and there, or everyone's going to find something that doesn't sit entirely right with them. But for the most part, an enjoyable effort.
Oh, definitely, yeah. So on that bombshell, I think we should wrap up the first roundup. So thank you to my bridge crew for joining.
Bridge crew now, eh?
Well, promotions, they happen very quickly in this universe.
Come by them very easily.
Yeah.
You happen to be in proximity to the bridge, so you're elected.
I found my rank stripes in the conflicts box.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's it. You win them.
Hey, that's valid. That's valid in this universe.
There's a shipwide prize draw every day,
Oh.
and people get the opportunity to become some kind of officer. So.
We get to win something.
Well, it depends. Depends where you get put. You know, if you get put in sick bay and you have no medical training, it's going to be a difficult one.
If you get put into getting put into a red shirt, sucks to be you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, not one of those decks that always gets hit by a torpedo and then you're going to go flying out into space.
Yeah. There's all those problems. You know, it's a lottery. I mean, not everyone's going to win.
See, my sort of bad luck would be I would always be assigned to that one part of the ship that always gets the outer hull blasted away from it. That's my kind of luck. So yeah, that's what would be happening to me. I'm the red shirt.
I think I'd get my job taken by someone that just happens to be nearby at the time.
Here you, I want your job. Get out of my.
Then I'll get thrown out in an escape pod and have to fend for myself on an ice planet. It's not a good career, but, you know.
It's a short one, but I was going to say illustrious as well, but no, it's not even illustrious.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining for the first in our Star Trek series.
Yeah,
You're very welcome.
And I will beam you up. Yeah, and I will beam you all out.
Bye.
Thanks for having us aboard, Captain.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope everyone made it out safely. Thanks everyone who listened through the clicking and enjoyed this podcast. Please tune in to the next edition of Kneel Before Pod.